All right, so in this code pen, we're going to talk about some different major semantic sectioning types of um, tags. And so to do that, first I want to go ahead and have you go to the dashboard. I'm going to go to my dashboard. I'm already logged in. And so far I've been collecting my practice lessons. You can either look at your pens here and select from it, or you can go to collections. If I go to either one of these, I can go to practice lessons, and if I look here, I'll find the one that's called articles and nesting. I want to open that because I want to create a fork off of it. So if I open this, this is the goofy one that I put, music coming to Coachella Valley. So I'm just going to start with this so I don't have to reinvent the wheel, and I'm going to create a fork. And what I'm going to call this one, all right, and you'll notice that the URL changed. So we're going to change this to something new, and let's try that again. All right, I'm just gonna paste this, but I'm gonna call it header nav main aside footer section. All right, I'm just gonna have a laundry list of things here that we're gonna talk about, and I'm gonna save that. Okay, so if you wanted to just double check and make sure you didn't, make a mistake and save over something, we can also just make sure that it's in practice lessons also. Let's go down or go back over here to the little code pen icon, and we're gonna look at our dashboard really quickly. Let's make sure that all of those pins are actually there. So we still have paragraphs and headings, articles and nesting is still there, lists, block quotes and inline quotes, and then now we've got this new one. Okay, so let's go back to that new one. And let's start working from here. Now, one of the things that I'm going to do, because I'm going to have some longer pieces of information here, I'm going to change my view, and I'm going to go to this view, right, where I've got the top and bottom thing set up. Click change view to make that go away. And before I do much of anything else, I'm just going to paste something so that we can talk about a few things. I'm going to go up to the very top here, and I'm just going to paste some things in. All right, and if you want to type this stuff, you can. And if you want to go back in here and copy some of the stuff down and type it, you're welcome to. Or you can just sort of make some notes. The other thing that I might do, that's a lot of stuff to read in this dark gray. So one of the things that I might do just really quickly is I'm going to jump up here to, let's go ahead and save this really quickly. And I'm going to right click and, oops, excuse me. I'm going to click on that little code pen thing. And then I'm going to go over here and right click where it says settings. I'm going to open my settings in a new window or a new tab. And I'm also going to change my dark theme because right now I've got so many comments in there that it may be hard for you to read them. So I might go here to one of these others and see if we have something that might be a little bit easier to read the comments, like XQ Lite, for instance. So I'm going to switch over to XQ Lite. You could also see maybe if there's some other ones where the comments are easier to read in a dark screen, but generally they're a little bit harder to read. So I'm going to choose XQ Lite, and we can just double check to make sure that these are actually, maybe this one's better, MDM like. Yeah, we'll do MDM like because it's not quite as bright white in the background, so we'll choose that one. I'm going to click Save All Settings, and I'm just going to go ahead and close this. And now if I, actually, let's go ahead and we'll jump back to our dashboard, and then let's open that up again. We'll go back to header nav main, and you can see now that it's much brighter and you can actually read these comments a little bit better, because we're going to talk a little bit about all of these different sections. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to pull this down a little bit, is talk about different things. We've already kind of introduced what a header is, all right? And we talked about that in this particular previous pen that we did whenever we created a header that was nested inside of an article. Now, I just want to make it really clear, though, that a header doesn't always have to go directly inside of an article. Like, it's not just something that's going to start an article. It could be the introduction area for a number of different things. The most common places that you're going to see a header introducing something is either it's going to be the first thing right inside of an article like this, where it introduces what we're about to see inside that article, or the other thing that you might see a header do is be like a banner at the top of a page, where it's the very first thing your page might encounter is that header. And so let's go ahead and use that as an example here. And so I'm going to kind of copy this section, or this comment, and we'll make some space in between it. In fact, what we can do is something like this, so that it's really clear that this is just for our notes, and we can get rid of this stuff at the top later. Okay, so let's come down here, and we're going to create something that's more like a page header, so that you can get an idea, and then we can add some more comments inside of this, and you'll have a better idea of, you know, how a larger page would kind of start to come together. So the first thing you might see then is, you know, we'll create that header tag, and then if I start to type the closing header tag, you can see right there that it goes ahead and it completes it. And inside of something that's in a, you know, a major header, you might want to go ahead, so that it doesn't get confused with any of these other headers down here. You can give something an ID. We've talked a little bit about, um, you know, attributes in one of the previous ones, like when I introduced the cite attribute for block quotes and for quotes. Well, you can create classes and IDs that are attached to anything, but if you want something to be very specific on a page, and you only want there to be like one important layout instance of that piece of your layout, then you can give it an ID, because an ID attribute is only supposed to happen one time on a page. Now you can have multiple IDs on a page, but they can't be the same IDs. For instance, if I call this header and I give it an ID of banner, for instance, all right, then I can't have another ID anywhere else on this page that's for banner. I can't assign that ID to anything else. This is the only banner that would be on that page. So a lot of times you're going to find that headers at the top of a page that introduce the entire page, you know, like where maybe it has the H1 for the entire page or something like that, then you're going to find that that might have an ID of something like banner or introduction, or, you know, whatever, or page header or something like that. Okay, and it might have its own special ID. And one of the things that's nice about doing that is that you can then target this individually and specially for styling whenever later we go and we start doing CSS, which we're not doing right now. So I've got this header, and you know, what I'd probably have is I'd probably have this H1, which is going to be my entire page title. I would have that in my main banner header. So I'm going to cut that, and I'm actually going to place it and nest it inside of my main header here. Okay, and I'm going to get rid of that. We'll just sort of start crossing these off. Okay, and so this could be like the way that you could introduce a header. Now, the other one I wanted to talk about is a nav tag. Navigational tags, and it's specifically called nav. The nav tag is something that you would always wrap around menus. And a lot of times, you know, menus can come in different forms. They can either be a bunch of, you know, just anchor links strung together, or they could be, you know, anchors inside of paragraphs or whatever. But a lot of times, the most common way that you should consider making a list of links that are in a menu would be in an actual list itself. So you would wrap a nav tag around it, though, so that you understand that that list of links is actually intended to be a major section of navigation on the page. That's actually quite important for ADA accessibility. Now, a lot of times you're going to find that the navigation for the, you know, like global navigation that's going to be persistent throughout the entire website, a lot of times you're going to find that inside the header. Not always, it's not required or anything, but that's what we're going to do just so you can get a sense of how that might look. So let's do a nav tag here, and we'll do our ending nav like that. And you'll see here that now I've got space in between to actually put something else in it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy or cut this comment that I have. I'm going to cut it with my keyboard shortcut of Command X or Control X if you're on Windows. And I'm going to put that right up above the nav tag so that you can see some comments, all right, so that you can understand what that thing actually does. So in the nav, I'll put an unordered list. And the reason I'm going to do it as an unordered list is because I don't need to have them numerical. All right, that's not important. And so inside of that UL, we'll put some list items. And because these are actually navigational links, we actually need to use anchor tags, which we haven't talked about yet. So I'm actually going to talk about links in much greater detail in a different tutorial. But for right now, let's just go ahead and put something there. So we'll start to type out an anchor tag, and then I'll put a space because anchor tags have to have an href attribute, which you should remember from the lecture. And so I'll do href equals, and then this is where the address would go. So you could have it go to like google.com or some other place. The other thing that you can do, just for the sake of having it show up as a link and behave as a link, you know, like where it, you know, by default makes it blue and underlined and stuff like that and clickable, is that all you really need to do is put a hashtag right there, just to get it to sort of be a placeholder until you actually know what your links are going to be. And the reason for this is that whenever the page sees a hashtag, what it is going to do is it's going to refresh the existing same page, right? Just so you understand that. And then I'm going to put my angle bracket there. Here, let's just make this easier to see that we're working, you know, on this anchor tag. So we've got the opening A tag, right? And what that's got is an attribute. So it has a space and then the attribute of href equals, and then in quotations we have for the value is a hashtag. So it's going to go to the same page, right? It's not going to go somewhere new. And then what you would put next is you would put the thing on the page that's clickable. So we'll just put link, let's just say link 1. And then we need to end that anchor tag like that, okay? And I don't need all this extra space here now, but I just wanted to show you that as I was typing that this part right here is the actual A tag. So it's, again, to reiterate, it's A, and then the attribute href equals, and then the value for that href is a pound symbol or a hashtag, so that the hyperreference that it's going to go to is the same page that we're currently on. All right, and then you would put the closing right angle bracket, and then nested inside of the opening A tag and this closing A tag, we have what is going to be clickable on the page. And you can see that is actually happening. If I pull this up, you can see that actually happening right here. And so now I have something that I can copy. I'll copy this entire list item, and I'll just make like 3 of those. All right, and I'll say link 2, link 3. All right, and so now I have a nav tag that has a real honest to God navigational list inside of it. It doesn't go anywhere really, but it functions as a real navigational list. Okay, and so semantically, a screen reader or a search engine would understand that this is an actual menu because of that nav tag, as opposed to just a collection of links that you might have that you don't intend really to be navigation, but you just intend to be maybe some resources. This says, hey, this is actually navigation for this page. All right, and so far, just as a really quick recap, what we talked about is adding the header, which in this case is a specific header, and we decided that we're going to give it a special ID so that it delineates itself from all the other headers on the page. And we said the ID would be called banner, so it's going to be like the introduction to the entire page. And as a result of that, we decided to go ahead and nest an H1, which is the title of the entire page. And then we also decided to put some navigation inside that header as well, because it is going to be the navigation for the site that's on all of the pages inside the header. And that's something else to think about too, is that a lot of times what you have in this header is going to be consistent from page to page to page to page throughout your website. You know, that's something that you quite often want to stay the same or very similar. So that people still remember that they're on the same website. They get that understanding. All right, so now we've talked about header and nav. Let's look at main and see what main actually does. So I'm gonna cut main up here, and if you look real quick before I cut it, it says contains the main content of the page. That seems pretty straightforward. Well, main content of the page would not be, for instance, the header. Anything that is going to be consistent throughout the website You know, like if the header is going to be the same on every page of the website, and maybe there's a thing we'll get to in a minute called a footer that's at the bottom of the website. If those are all going to be the same, then perhaps what you want is to call out the section of the page that is going to be wrapping all of the main content, or the content that people are actually going to get the most out of. So in that case, I think that the rest of this stuff fits the bill. Like, we've got all these articles. Well, the main content of this page would be that I would want people to read these articles, right? So that's actually the main content. So let's do something really quickly. Let's highlight all of this, the stuff that has all these articles. All right, let's highlight that. And then I'm going to use my little shortcut. If you remember, you can click this to see what it is. It's for my computer, it's Shift Command A, and I can wrap everything with something that's called main. And you see what it did is it put a main tag around all of those articles, and then it ended it. All right, so it wrapped all that stuff. And then I can put my comment up here if I want, where it says main contains the main content of the page. And one of the things that you're going to find as you get further and further into this is that screen readers, people who have disabilities, you know, low vision, if they're using a screen reader to read the content of the page to them, then you wouldn't want to have to encounter this same content for every single page that you encounter if it's the same, right? You wouldn't have to want to listen to that navigation being read over and over and over. So one of the things that a lot of people do up in the top of the page is that they'll provide a link to skip down here to the main content, so that people don't have to always listen to those links if they don't want to. So that's what main content is. All right, it's pretty self-explanatory. All right, but an aside is the next thing that's in the list, yet it's one of the things I want to talk about towards the end, because right now it might be a little bit confusing. I'm going to go ahead and move to the other stuff, and we'll come back to that in a little bit.